Hi, this is Jeff Mijewski of the IBM Corporation, and in this fourth demo we're going to be looking at installing WebSphere Application Server on ZOS using an installation manager repository delivered with SMP. In the previous demos we simply downloaded and unzipped a repository, but that's not very easy to update or maintain. So on the website, if you go out and find the repository SMP deliverables and download them, following the instructions in the Getting Started directory, you can receive them to unpack the DSS dump inside. Specifying the name and the volume that you want to use for the dump file. And then once that's successful, we go ahead and use the job also provided in the Getting Started guide to restore the individual rel file and SMP MCS datasets inside. Check the dataset name that we downloaded and issue the restore. Here we see the installation manager rel files that we uploaded previously, and then the SMP deliverables for the WAS V8 repository. The repository is what we'll be using to install the WAS code with Installation Manager. In the F1 dataset are sample jobs to do the SMP install, so we go ahead and copy those to a work dataset where we can edit and submit them. In this case, I've already copied and customized them. So if we go take a look at those, we'll find that they're pretty similar to what's there for the Installation Manager as far as SMPE. We create an SMP CSI, and in this case I'm creating a separate one from the one we did for Installation Manager. The IM install kit would normally go with the ZOS operating system, whereas all the repositories in this case we're installing into the same SMP CSI. So we create some target and dlib zones for it. We receive the rel files after checking that the dataset name is correct. And that runs for a bit. Once it's complete, we allocate the target and distribution datasets in the HFS for the repository. We create SMP DD definitions, including one pointing to where the repository is going to live, user LPP installation manager repository / then the FMID. We also make sure to point to and JDK so that SMP can find the jar command. We run a job to mount that dataset at service, so /service / user LPP and so on. And when all that's done, we're ready to go ahead and do the SMP apply. First with the check, which runs very quickly. Then we take the check off and resubmit it. Now remember, what we're installing here is not the WAS product, but the materials, the zip files and metadata that IM will use to actually create multiple copies of WebSphere Application Server. So go ahead and run the accept, again check, and then the real accept. And of course, one would envision that you could just as easily have received this as part of a ServerPac, say, with a ZOS refresh. When all said and done, we have the distribution data sets, the target data sets, including the SBBO IMR that contains the repository. We unmount it with a local command from its service mount point and remount it at its real mount point, so we can use it with Installation Manager. And this can be mounted read-only. It doesn't need to be modified, except when applying new level of service to it with SMP. Updates to the Installation Manager repository are how you might receive fixed packs, for example, or new features into the repository so IM can work with them. Looking in it, it's the same kind of repository layout as we've seen with other products. And now we're ready to go ahead and actually do an install of WebSphere Application Server. As part of the IM product, we shipped a couple of GIM N3 sample jobs to create file systems and to run installs and uninstalls. So we're going to copy these to our work data set. And of course, you could have multiple copies of these for the different products. So I go to my work data set. And I'm actually going to rename these to make it obvious to myself that they're for WAS V8 rather than for another product. And now edit them so I can submit them. The first job here creates an HFS data set that we will put a copy of WebSphere Application Server into. Comments here are extensive and worth reading. But basically what we're going to select is the target HFS name, dataset name. And I just choose a similar name to what I would have used in V7. But remember, this is not going to be SMP managed, but managed by IM. We have to point to IM to retrieve one of the scripts that's run. And finally, we point to the target path where we will install the WebSphere Application Server with IM. This could be a service mount point, but in this case, since I'm only working with these while my servers are offline, I'll go ahead and point to the real location. I also specify the user ID and group that Installation Manager runs under. Once that's run, we go ahead and grab the install job itself. And this job has to run under whatever user ID is specified for creating and invoking the Installation Manager. Down here in the comments, we give the offering name, which is sort of like the FMID for the product itself, the name that Installation Manager knows WAS V8 by. So we copy it in here, take out the inadvertent word that I pasted in by accident. So it should be install followed by the offering name, IBM WebSphere OS 390 V80. We create a package group name, which IM would install by default, but it's helpful to specify it ourselves. We point to the installation directory for WAS V8, the location where we want to build it. We point to the cache HFS that we created in the previous demo, where IM will download parts to. We point to the location where the repository for WAS V8 is mounted. And then we're all ready to go. The job runs for about 15 minutes, and when it completes, we can go out and look at the output and also at what has been stored into the target location. At the present time, Installation Manager doesn't really give a successful completion message. If there are no messages there, it means it worked. But if we look in the target location for WAS V8, we see all the things we'd expect, and WAS is successfully installed.